In 2024, I made 3 predictions that the entire world said were impossible. I said Trump would win. I said he would start a war with Iran. And I said America would lose that war. All 3 came true. And now I have 6 new predictions. And I will explain each one by one. But before I do that, I want you to understand something. Most people look at the world the way you look at a movie. They watch the surface. They follow the characters. They react to the drama, but they never ask who wrote the script. And that is the single most important question you can ask right now. Because what is happening in the world today is not chaos. It is not confusion. It is a plan. And once you understand the plan, the predictions become obvious. So let us begin. My first prediction is that Trump will get a 3rd term. Now, I know what you are thinking. This is constitutionally illegal. It cannot happen. And I want you to stop and think very carefully before you dismiss this, because there is a difference between something being unconventional and something being illegal. And when you read the Constitution very carefully, and I mean very carefully, you will find that the loopholes exist. The first possibility is this. Trump runs his son, Don Jr., in 2028 and positions himself as the vice president. Don Jr. wins. Don Jr. then steps aside and Trump returns to the presidency. Now you will say no sane person would do this, and you are right. No sane person would. But that has never stopped Trump before. The second possibility is more serious. By 2028, America is at war, not just with Iran, with everyone. And a president at war has emergency powers. And emergency powers allow you to do things that would otherwise be impossible, including suspending elections. Zelensky did it in Ukraine and nobody stopped him. So ask yourself this. If America is in the middle of a world war in 2028 and Trump declares a national emergency, who exactly is going to stop him? The courts, the same Supreme Court where he appointed 3 of the 9 justices? Think about that very carefully, because the people who are laughing at this prediction today are the same people who laughed when I said Trump would win in 2024. And we all know how that ended. My second prediction is that Iran will become a forever war, and the United States will institute a national draft. Let me explain the logic here, because most people completely misunderstand what this war is actually about. Most people think America is fighting Iran because of nuclear weapons or because of terrorism or because of Israel. And while all of those things play a role, none of them is the real reason. The real reason is the petrodollar. America's entire empire is built on one thing: the world using the US dollar to buy and sell energy. The moment that stops, the American empire ends. And Iran, connected to Russia and China, was threatening exactly that. So America had no choice but to go to war. But here's the problem. This war cannot end quickly because Iran is not Iraq. Iraq was flat desert. You fly in your planes, you cut off the head of the snake, and the war is over in 2 weeks. Iran is a mountain fortress, 92 million people, 31 decentralized military provinces, each with their own command and control. You cannot decapitate this snake because this snake has 31 heads. And so this war will go on for years, possibly for decades. And to fight a war that goes on for decades, you need soldiers, lots of them. And that is why, starting this December, If you are a male between the ages of 18 and 24 inches in America, you will be automatically registered for the draft. Not voluntarily, automatically. This law has already been passed. Most people do not know about it, but it is real. And it means that an entire generation of young Americans is about to be told that their lives are no longer entirely their own. Think about what that does to a society. Think about what that does to families. Think about what that does to the political stability of a country that is already more divided than at any point in living memory. My third prediction is that the world will move towards an AI civilian state. And I want to be very precise about what I mean by this, because the phrase gets thrown around a lot without people truly understanding its implications. An AI civilian state means two things: digital ID and digital currency. That is it. Those two things together give any government on earth total and complete control over every single one of its citizens. Think about it this way. Right now, if a government wants to stop you from doing something, it has to pass a law. It has to enforce that law. It has to catch you breaking it. That takes time. There is a growing strand of geopolitical commentary that warns of a future shaped less by open political debate and more by tightly integrated systems of technology, surveillance, finance, and state power. In this view, digital infrastructure does not merely support governance. It becomes governance itself. A digital currency system, for example, is often described by critics as more than a payment tool. Because it is programmable, it could, in theory, allow authorities to embed conditions into financial transactions. In such a scenario, certain purchases might be automatically restricted based on policy rules, regulatory frameworks, or real-time compliance systems. Supporters argue this could reduce fraud and improve security, while critics worry it could concentrate too much discretionary power in the architecture of money itself, removing traditional legal and institutional safeguards from individual transactions. Closely tied to this concern is the rise of unified digital identity systems. In their most advanced form, these systems could connect financial activity, online behavior, location data, and social interactions into a single, continuously updated profile. When combined with large-scale data analytics and artificial intelligence, this kind of integration is sometimes described as enabling predictive governance systems that attempt to anticipate behavior patterns, risks, or preferences before they are explicitly expressed. Some observers point to China as an example of where elements of this model already exist in partial form, such as extensive digital payment ecosystems and state-linked data monitoring frameworks. However, the extent, uniformity, and interpretation of these systems remain widely debated, and comparisons across countries often overlook major legal and institutional differences. In Western countries, similar technologies are being introduced more gradually, typically accompanied by regulatory oversight and political contestation, rather than a single unified architecture. Another major geopolitical claim circulating in some analytical and political discourse concerns the long-term strategic trajectory of Israel and its regional environment. One interpretation, often labeled the Greater Israel concept, is rooted in certain historical and religious readings that reference territorial boundaries stretching from the Nile region toward the Euphrates. It is important to note that this is not an official state policy of Israel, nor is it a universally accepted geopolitical objective. Rather, it exists as a contested idea discussed in some ideological and academic contexts. In current regional dynamics, Israel's security environment is frequently analyzed through its conflicts with non-state and state actors such as Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas in Gaza, and the broader strategic competition involving Iran. Some commentators argue that prolonged conflict reshapes regional power balances in Israel's favor, while others emphasize the significant constraints imposed by international diplomacy, military limitations, and the interests of neighboring states such as Turkey and Saudi Arabia. The broader reality remains complex, with no single actor able to unilaterally determine the region's long-term geopolitical structure. A similar pattern of strategic forecasting appears in discussions about Eastern Europe, particularly the war in Ukraine and the significance of ports such as Odessa. From a military and economic perspective, Odessa is often highlighted because of its role as a key maritime outlet on the Black Sea, influencing Ukraine's export capacity and regional connectivity. Analysts who focus on Russian strategic objectives argue that control over southern coastal access would significantly alter Ukraine's economic and military positioning. On the other hand, NATO and Western governments view Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity as central principles, making any potential expansion of Russian control a major red line. In this context, Odessa becomes less a single objective and more a symbol of broader strategic competition between Russia and NATO, where escalation risks are shaped as much by deterrence, politics, and alliance credibility as by geography alone. Finally, in East Asia, analysts frequently identify several potential flashpoints that could generate broader conflict dynamics. Taiwan is often described as the most sensitive issue, given its strategic location and its role in global semiconductor supply chains. Japan's security posture is sometimes discussed in relation to potential disruptions in regional maritime routes, particularly in the surrounding sea lanes that are critical to its energy imports and trade flows. The Strait of Malacca is widely recognized as one of the world's most important maritime choke points, carrying a substantial share of global energy shipments, especially those bound for China. Because of this, it is frequently cited in strategic planning discussions by multiple major powers as an area of long-term concern. North Korea adds another layer of complexity to the regional picture. Its nuclear capability, combined with the unpredictability of its strategic signaling, makes it a persistent factor in East Asian security calculations. Analysts sometimes argue that periods of global distraction or shifting military deployments could create windows of opportunity or instability on the Korean Peninsula. However, actual decision-making in such scenarios is heavily constrained by deterrence dynamics, alliance structures, and the catastrophic risks associated with escalation. Taken together, these scenarios reflect a broader theme in modern geopolitical analysis: the increasing interconnection of technology, finance, military strategy, and information systems. Whether these trends lead toward tighter control, fragmented multipolar competition, or renewed institutional restraint depends less on deterministic maps and more on political choices, international law, and the evolving balance of global power.